I'm here today to accept a mistake of mine. Not something big enough for a whole TED talk, but definitely something interesting enough for one. But that's for later. For now, let's start at the very beginning. So, when we were first asked to conceptualize what we imagine our talks to be about, I spent hours trying to think of any and all interesting events that might have happened in my life, any mind blowing talent or hobby that I might have garnered over my years of existence, but I soon came to the conclusion that, you know, I'm pretty boring actually. And also the conclusion that my talk did not have to be about anything mind blowing. It could just be about a simple learning experience that I've had, which brought me to talk about my 14-year stay in Chennai in the south of India. Now, as a North Indian, I'd probably talk about how an experience of living away from your roots and your extended family could shape someone differently and for the better. So I guess you could call this talk an ode to the only home I've ever known, a dedication to a city that raised me, the people in it who I share amazing memories with, and lastly, a guide on the do's and the don'ts of living in a non native place. So we moved to Chennai when I was 2 years old, but back then there was a lot of skepticism revolving around our whole move. We heard comments like, but why go so far away? Nobody even knows Hindi there. To I've heard they hate North Indians. To it's so hot there, you'll go incredibly dark. But thankfully, none of these comments deterred my parents. In fact, the cluelessness about South India and its facilities and urban atmosphere still very much exists to this day. And some of these biases are nothing short of absurd, if not hilarious. There's even an anecdote about how my grandmother called us the second we landed in Chennai to ask us what the time was there, not knowing that we were still very much in India. So it was obviously a very doubt and nervousness filled move, but it was all definitely worth it. We were not only not hated on for being North Indians as we were warned, but we met some of the most hospitable people we've ever known there. I had the best childhood filled up with memories of me trying to learn Bharatnatyam or how to speak Tamil and desperately failing. Now, another assumption which is disproved was that nobody speaks Hindi there. Well, people do speak Hindi there, lots of them, and that's where I think we made a mistake. Instead of attempting to actively embrace the language and the culture of the place that we were living in, we chose comfort. Sure, learning Tamil and going and then using that language, knowledge of the language to socialize with Tamilians would not be easy, but should we have done it? I guess you could call it our moral quandary, but we chose to familiarize ourselves in places where we did not have to make an extra effort. We had a whole circle of Hindi speaking people around us like a blanket, which exempted us from actually going out there. I mean, look at me today. I've spent 7/8 of my life in Tamil Nadu, and my knowledge of their language is minimal. It's the least that I needed to know in order to get by. This may seem like I'm judging myself a little harshly, but I didn't begin thinking about this until I moved away from Chennai. And although I miss the place every day, I do find myself thinking that my bond with the place would be much more special if I carried a part of me with it, the language. Somewhere it feels like even though Chennai accepted us graciously and with open arms, we might not have accepted Chennai right until it was a little too late. It does feel weird though to hear judgmental remarks about both North India and South India and not know whether to feel offended, whether to laugh, or to defend either one. While in South India, we heard comments about how North Indians aren't faithful, that people there are primarily focused on themselves, they're self centered, they aren't as grounded. And although my interaction with the people of North India is extremely less, I do have to say they are the most helpful, sweet, focused, and spirited people I've ever met. and my 11 months here couldn't have gone any better. Now, while in the north, we were appalled when we were asked if there were any malls in Chennai. In fact, most of the questions we were asked upon our return was, how did you survive there? The thing is, we didn't survive. We didn't just survive, we thrived. And there is nothing that could ever make us regret having spent a major portion of our lives there. So, if I had to settle this, I am not saying that there is no difference in the temperament of the people in these two extremes of India, but what I am saying is that neither of these stark contrasts and character are bad. Being different from what we characterize as normal does not indicate being wrong or being bad. My eventful time in Chennai has taught me a lot of things, some of which I learned well after I left the place. So, if you are someone who might possibly be moving away from a familiar place to a strange one, I have a few suggestions. Diversify, learn a new language, talk to the locals, and do it all before you have to move away and you're forced to regret not making the best of such an amazing situation where you get to spread your bases. Don't let the stereotype anyone holds ever narrow your opinion of them. People speak what they've been told, and for the majority of people, these aren't positives that they're told. So, although people might have something to say about who you are and where you're from, don't let proving them wrong be your entire personality. Let's focus on trying to understand where the other person is coming from. If one decision of moving to Chennai could make a boring person like me want to give a speech about it, imagine what it could do to all the interesting people out there. This was my experience of facing diversity in the face, and this was me accepting my mistakes.